All right, everyone, we should be live. Let's make sure that's actually the case over on Rumble, of course. We're going to be talking about all sorts of cool shit today. We've got Trump's strategy for 2024. It has taken more of a shape now. Before it was more like planks in the campaign platform. Now it's more like an actual thing. It's like an actual, he's making multiple pledges here. We're going to go into that. We've got to talk about Elon Musk, of course, and the BBC interview and the war on the legacy media that's happening in a partisan manner, but it's still intriguing. Republicans blocking the temporary appointment of Chuck Schumer, actually, to replace Dianne Feinstein on the Senate Judiciary, and much, much more. Let's see. We are indeed live over on Rumble. Excellent. Lemon Curd Zero, good morning, Clank World. Gary Baxter 001 Clank, and Chris 07077 says Clank as well. Lots of clanking going on. Yeah, by the way, everyone should be following me on Rumble. Thank you, Paul Datillo. Yes, you should be following me there because remember, I live stream on 2 different platforms now, and YouTube is going on a pogrom against creators right now. So I don't know. I mean, I could be easily banned before the 24 election, in which case I guess I'll be using Rumble and Odyssey. I'll have to get a second screen, though, because StreamYard doesn't collate every comment on every platform evenly. It doesn't work like with Rumble, so I have to have a second tab open on the side with all the news tabs as well. Verona7881 sent €6. Thank you very much. No comment. Yeah. Just a second here. I'm making sure that everything is working. All of my tabs, etc., etc. I'm going to probably keep it a little bit short today because Liz is going to be coming back a little bit early, and she's got an appointment that she has to go to separately. So the baby has to go for her nap, and we got to feed her, and there's a lot going on to the point where I'm not even cooking tonight. Most of the time, every night, I cook dinner, or Liz cooks sometimes. Excellent scallop potatoes, by the way. Just saying, they are A+ grade. But I just got a fucking microwavable meal tonight. I can't even deal with it. Some beef teriyaki, actually. There's something going on over here. Just a second, everyone. What's happening here? Never mind. Anyway, we're going to get right into it. This is under human events, of course, .com. Trump tells top RNC donors the old GOP is not coming back. They must now become the new America First party of the working class, and lays out plan for nationwide Republican ballot harvesting operation. Now, this is dovetailed with a further explanation. I've warned that if the GOP delves into ballot harvesting, etc., it opens a can of worms as far as election law goes that you don't want to open. What they're dovetailing now with it is the idea that basically they just need to do it now in order to get into power, and then thereafter they can change election law. I really hope that that's actually going to be what happens, assuming that that plan works. There is no alternative, though. Now, unfortunately, the can of worms is already open, and so Trump has decided to embrace that and say, fuck it. We're going to harvest ballots better than the Democrats, and we're taking it nationwide. Thereafter, we can have a conversation about election law. At a bare minimum, it should include one thing that the right wants, which is a universal voter ID law, and something that the left wants, actually, which is a national holiday for Election Day. I do believe that the left is fundamentally correct on that. It makes no sense that someone should be compelled to work unless their position is uber important, like a doctor or something, on Election Day. And for them, of course, you can expand absentee ballots. Nobody else needs them. It should be paper ballot only. It should be fundamentally in person only. And we do need these reforms. My hope is that that will actually happen. We'll see. We don't even know exactly what's going to happen with the election. Of course, if it gets honk-honked again, you won't see a Republican administration willing to do that. Anyway, when we look at what Trump is saying, there's something else that I deeply agree with, which is the concept that you need to take the GOP back to what it originally was many, many decades ago, which was the party of the farmer, the party of the mechanic, the party of the working class or the middle classer. What the GOP did in the 90s and 2000s is become the party of corporate elites. And that didn't work for very long. It worked in the wake of the good economy that Reagan built. It didn't work for very long. And then Clinton out-Reaganed them really by saying, hey, I'm Ronald Reagan, but with more welfare. And so basically, vote for me. I'll maintain the Reaganomics situation. I don't want to rock the boat, but I want to give more handouts to the needy. And so that was the winning strategy. And the Democrats kept up with that through Obama. It fell apart when Trump embraced populism. And Trump has the right idea with regards to this. They would be crazy not to go along with him. I think that Trump should be the nominee. I would vote for him in a heartbeat. I've already seen what he can do. I've already seen his track record by and large. Again, even if I can only give him a 6 out of 10 presidency, that's better than anything else in my lifetime. First term Reagan was great. 5 out of 10 at least. Second term Reagan fell short. 3 out of 10 maybe. Same with Clinton. When you're looking at Bush, I barely can give him a number. Obama, he had a couple of things that he did right, and that's basically it. The rest of everything he did for 8 years is bullshit. And then Biden has been an unmitigated disaster. He seems to be actually leaning towards wanting to destroy the Western hemisphere entirely. So, Drew McTighe, what's your cat's name? We have 2, Yana and Farah. Yana is over here attempting to eat the plant, which I don't really appreciate, so maybe you can come over here instead. She's going to do spinny tail things. And then Farah is slightly smaller and slightly less orange in tone. In Dutch, I call this one Pompoenpoes, which means pumpkin cat, basically. And Farah is Pindapoes, which means like peanut cat. She's sort of peanut colored, the underfur. She's got like an orange underfur. I just find it funny. Sassamatas, hey Sticks, thoughts on the Ali Alexander shitstorm? I'm not going to bother weighing in on that because, again, I still don't know enough about it to weigh in. My understanding is Ali Alexander is well, number one, gay. Number two, into sometimes illegally young males, and that's a problem. People are tying that in with Nick Fuentes, but again, I don't know the ins and outs of his connection with Fuentes, so I'm not going to dogpile Fuentes. I'm not going to do that because I don't know enough to do so, and I don't want to make a fool of myself. So I have respect for other creators until I'm confronted with significant evidence that something has gone wrong. With Alexander, we know he's admitting to some of what happened, which makes him a creepazoid, likely to be investigated at the state or federal level, by the way. But that doesn't necessarily mean that other people were directly involved or knowledgeable. Iggy the Incubus. Ron Filipowski, calling a constitutional limited government that respects your rights Trump's brand of conservatism is an unintended endorsement, in my honest opinion. Yeah, he self-owns a lot. King of Biltong, good morning from Antons in Roanoke, Texas. Hashtag Clank Nation. Absolutely, of course. Must always clank along. Right now, I don't have anything to clank. I have a little bit of tonic left, but that's about it. Next news story. Breaking 911. Breaking, Republicans block temporary replacement for Feinstein on key Senate panel, leaving many Biden judicial nominees in limbo. Yes, Dianne Feinstein is not long for the world, in my opinion. She's elderly, very elderly. She's been reportedly suffering from dementia and like beyond even Biden levels of incoherence, like mid-stage dementia now for a couple of years. She never should have even sought her last term. She has been in the hospital for a couple of months, and she's not making it to most of the key Senate votes that she needs to be part of in order to do her job. The liberals are fundamentally correct in when they say that she should resign. She's not doing her job that she was elected to do. The fact that she was elected by a bunch of leftoids in California doesn't fundamentally undermine that. She was elected to do a job for the people, for the constituents that she stands for. Even if that's only, 2/3 of Californians and the other third gets fucked in the ass, that is the job she was elected to do. And she's not doing that. So the liberals are fundamentally correct when they say that. As I talked about this morning, I find the indignance of this move hilarious. Liberals right now are casting this off as, well, you're forcing this sick old lady to work and do her job and shit like that. How terrible. You're mistreating Dianne Feinstein. But these same people for a couple of months now have been talking about how they want Feinstein to resign and basically, hey, you've done a good job, but fuck off. That's what the liberals have been casting it off as. Yes, it's the right wing that's mistreating Feinstein. Of course, they're not looking a gift horse in the mouth, and they've actually grown a spine. Under normal circumstances, yesteryear's GOP would probably stand down and allow a replacement, Chuck Schumer, quite literally. So there's definitely some political bias there with regards to the judicial nominees. They would allow it. They wouldn't want to be called. They wouldn't want to be called misogynist. They're actually standing up against the Democrats right now, and they're deliberately obstructing the appointment of more judicial nominees. I support this. Joe Biden has dementia. Joe Biden is a steward. He shouldn't be appointing anyone. He shouldn't be permitted to do so. It's sort of like Woodrow Wilson after his stroke, when his signature mysteriously changed and looked a lot more like his wife's. Well, that doesn't necessarily make me feel safe at night. I think that there's something wrong with that. If a person can't do their job, then they shouldn't be doing it. That goes for Feinstein. She should retire. I mean, the liberals aren't wrong about that. They're just being hypocrites. And it goes for Biden as well. He's not capable of making a rational decision with regards to who should judge what is or is not constitutional. By the way, to KMK0, I am live on Rumble. I have posted the link, although I'll refresh it and make absolutely sure it's still going. Yes, it is indeed. I am live on Rumble. A couple people are, interesting. Well, I am live there. There's almost 1,000 people watching, so it's working for most people. Refresh your browser or try a different one if it's not working. It could be on your end as a problem. Sigilstone17 on Rumble, by the way. Feinstein replacement being blocked is only a temporary setback for the Democrats. She'll be back once they find another skin suit for the swarm of vermin she's made of. Yeah, yeah, they got to pack those cockroaches and ants in there really tight. Ryoga808, goat. Glad to catch you. Goat, good eats or no? Have I had goat meat? I don't know. Honestly, I don't know that I have. I'd like to try it, though. Mr. Willie2204, have you seen the interview between Tucker Carlson and Elon Musk where Musk discusses the threats that AI poses to humanity? Would love to hear your thoughts on it. Thanks for all you do, Clank. I've seen parts of it. I would agree that AI can indeed pose a threat to humanity. It really depends on what people do with it. My fear is, of course, it will be misused. It will probably rip certain types of jobs apart, by the way. White Rat, what are the chances that when Feinstein passes, the Dems try and blame her death on Republican meanies? It's possible. I think that will be discounted mostly. They can always try. The cat is once again attempting to... I'm once again asking you to stop eating the plant. Why don't you sit here? Show off how cute you are. Timothy Finch just wanted to shill the Cartoon Network show Villainous if you haven't seen it. Similar to Hell of a Boss in style and occult themes. May interest you. Sounds pretty cool. Although if it's on Cartoon Network at this point, it's probably a little bit G-rated. So yeah, the Republicans have blocked a replacement for Feinstein, effectively stymieing the Biden admin's capability of doing butt-fuck anything with regards to federal court justices. They should maintain that and hope that Feinstein lives out her term so that they can do something better in 24. And all of those vacancies then get filled potentially by who? Donald Trump. Wouldn't that be goddamn hilarious? The liberals would have a mental breakdown over this. By the way, actually, one of the few things that the Biden admin has done that, to its credit or discredit, depending on your politics, actually has been at least effective, is appointing judges. They've outstripped Trump, actually, at this point, at the same point in his presidency. And Trump got major plaudits, actually, because Obama really was bad at that. He didn't really gain a lot of cooperation from within his own party, and so he was deficient, even though he had 2 terms. Trump outstripped him massively. And now Biden has actually taken up that same mantle. But, I mean, if they don't have the votes, if they need Republican cooperation to get federal court justices through, the GOP might as well just not show up and say, well, they won't establish the ability, the quorum in order to have the vote, so we'll just leave them in committee. That would probably be a good idea. Biden really shouldn't be allowed to do anything. I mean, he's not capable of wiping his own ass. His butt's been wiped, but it's not by his own hand, so. Next news story. Elon Musk's BBC interview shows journalists don't speak truth to power, they coddle it. Now, I hate that term, speaking truth to power. What the fuck does that even fucking mean? It's used by leftoids mostly. What I would point out, and the New York Post is slightly hypocritical by being the one pointing this out, because you are technically part of the legacy media. You're just a slightly more palatable version of it. It's sort of like, hey, instead of this pile of rotten, mushy peas over here, you've got these peas and they're actually edible. I mean, they were still frozen or canned or something, but at least you can eat them and not get sick and puke all over yourself. And no seasoning allowed, but they're edible. You can survive on them for a while. That's basically like the New York Post and similar the similar outlets in the legacy media. That being said, I do approve of the war on the legacy media that's being waged by Twitter right now. And it is. It's a war on misinfo, really. If you want to fight a war against disinformation, what you need to do is ban the legacy media from the internet as large as you can. They should not be on social media. They should not be making vlogs. They should be shut out entirely. Let them have their echo chambers, their safe space on their own websites. They're allowed to have that and speak freely as they wish. The idea that they have a right to participate in the modern public square is one that has not been afforded to numerous individuals and groups that are not funded by governments or corporations throughout the last half decade, I would note. Nobody thought that that was an attack on the First Amendment, unless they happen to agree with those groups. All of a sudden, you've got the CBC, NPR, PBS, CBS for a while, that was several months ago, rage quitting Twitter and complaining about the fact that they're being labeled properly state affiliated and or partially government funded. And Twitter is pointing this out. And I think it's a sea change, because what they're doing is they're notifying people of something that people should be aware of, but often weren't. A lot of people, apparently, a lot of people were not aware that NPR got public funding through tax money. Or same for PBS, CBC, and so forth. CBS, it's the majority of their funding. It's 65% roughly. As a joke, Elon Musk has labeled them 69% state-funded media. That's close enough. It's in the same ballpark, so nobody really cares, other than people that are virtue signaling. I find this great. It's the greatest timeline once again. That's why I say that it feels a little bit like 2016. We finally got somebody running a major tech site. New tech is great. I like Rumble. I like BitChute, et cetera, et cetera. But they don't have the numerics that Twitter has. Twitter has a lot more users. Finally, we've got one mainline site that's sort of reverting back to like the 2000s mentality of, hey, speak your mind. We're going to fuck around a little bit. We're going to have some fun, do a little bit of trolling. That's what these sites did in the 2000s. They used to put up big splash screens and shit like that. Remember SOPA, PIPA, ACTA, some of the stuff the US and other governments wanted to do. They used to protest it. You had fucking Google did it. YouTube as a subjugative to Google did it. Facebook did it. Mozilla did it. Wikipedia did it. All of these other sites that had become so cucked and authoritarian were involved with those protests at the time. The only one that has reverted and done a hard reset back to the better era of the internet, when the internet was genuinely better in many ways, other than maybe speed and stability, is Twitter. And so I'm glad to have almost 130,000 fucking people following me there. I think that it's a place to be at the moment. It's a little bit like going into the Great Gatsby or something. Elon Musk is a good fit. Even has problems with women the same way. Joe, love you, Sticks. I've heard you mention the channel Tasting History with Max Miller. Clankers should check it out. Super cool channel. Yes, I did channel shout-outs this morning. Bio Nerd and him, Tasting History. Cancer Slug, which is a band which I find amusing. I like their name of their band first and foremost, but the music really actually is pretty good. A little bit Danzig-esque or something like that at some times. Good vocals. Good music, very, very goofy themes sometimes, but it's entertaining. And others that I shouted out this morning. So make sure to watch my video on the subject. Loam Slice. Hello, Sticks. Watch the Texas comedy Bubblegum on YouTube. Link that to me on Twitter DM if you can. Otherwise, YouTube's algorithm probably won't even fucking show it to me if I search for it. So, D. Good morning from Austin, Texas. Can you shout out my pups Oliver and Lana? Take care, Sticks. Well, your puppers have been shouted out. You can put them on YouTube as well. James Willis, well, they crash banks and blame Russian cyber attack. There's always the risk that something like that happens. You can also blame China or North Korea. Iggy Rules 420, hey, been watching for quite a while. Can you tell my buddy Mike Hayes he has a small one? Okay, Mike Hayes, you have a small one. I'm only insinuating what that has to do with. The Glanconer, they stopped making good music after the Virgin Prunes. Virgin Prunes are good, by the way. Very good band. You should definitely check them out as well. There are others, though. It's harder to find good new music, especially like retro style music, punk and stuff like that, on YouTube, which is a major jukebox for a lot of people. At the very least, YouTube maintains supremacy when it comes to that. It's becoming harder, but you can still find it. It helps if you go video to video and you fiddle around with the related settings, which you have to do now manually for some unknown reason. It's really, it's sad. It's a problem. Most of the music that I ever liked, I found because of YouTube, actually. Next news story, will school choice destroy the Democratic Party? The threat of fewer teachers and unions is a real and existential one. Yes, the left is worried because more and more people are embracing the concept that they should have the ability to choose which school their child goes to, and the form of schools, of course. It's not just the public schooling system. Some people choose to use a private school, often religious, but not always, something like that. Or they choose homeschooling, something along those lines. We're looking into all available options for our daughter, for example. I am hesitant to put her in a public school system because the public school system has been wrecked. There are schools that are exceptions, but I don't feel compelled if I can homeschool and or use tutors. I mean, for math, clearly a tutor would be necessary. You don't want to learn anything beyond basic algebra from me, even though I was good at math. I have definitely forgotten most of the calculations and rules and shit like that because I never fucking use it if I don't have to. As of 99% of you that are adults out there over 25. By now, you probably don't remember your polynomials too much. Solve for x. I don't know. Anyway, I'm looking into that because I'm like, well, the alternative is you have to constantly monitor the school itself. Like you have to go to every school board meeting, constantly be in contact with teachers and shit over and over. It's like more effort for less output. Because otherwise, you might end up with your kid being taught that gender doesn't exist, that chromosomes mean nothing, that Karl Marx was a pretty cool dude. And by the way, Tiananmen Square never happened. I'm not willing to run that risk. And would you? Yeah. Yeah, math is not racially biased. Unless you insist that students actually get the right answer, then you're a racist too. 2 + 2 can equal 5 sometimes, as long as they show their work and they tell you and they explain to you why they arrived at that conclusion. It's perfectly valid. I hate to tell you, but in some ultra woke school districts, that is actually a thing. It does exist. It's not hyperbole. It's rare. It's probably not happening in your school, but it could. Rebels have sex appeal, homeschool or get the fuck out. Yeah, homeschooling plus tutors, it's more expensive. Personally, I think the way to solve the problem is to give a proportional tax break to anyone who homeschools, or funding should they use a private school, a charter school, etc. Doesn't have to be religious, and in some cases isn't. If a person is homeschooling, doesn't that qualify them for a teacher's salary, at least in part? A proportion based on the number of students, which in their case is probably 1 or 2. Well, then they should get a proportional salary as the result of that. Because you're taking a person out of the school system. They're not getting any funding from the school, no school lunch, etc. They're not using the school bus, taking up a seat. They're not having to be watched by a teacher. That's one less person in the school district. You're saving the money. You're saving the taxpayers' money. And so you should save money as well for your homeschooling. I've seen some leftists claim that homeschooling should be banned in the United States. Good fucking luck, by the way. Honey, I Shrunk the Elves. Elf jerky. Why are people talking about elves all the time in there in the chat? I don't know what you're referring to. Next news story. The House GOP effort to defund, not police, but wokeness. Yes, indeed. The House Republicans are doing something interesting right now. They're attempting to use the fact that the House controls the purse strings for budgetary purposes to rid the U.S. government of ESG investments. And they're identifying $900 million in 2023 that could be axed and it wouldn't mean anything. I'm going to take you through a few of them. This is for 24, though. The Commerce, Justice, Science, and Related Agencies Appropriations Acts more than $200 million in spending on programs aimed at increasing race-based hiring and recruitment in STEM. It's interesting how you could make any constitutional argument that taxpayers should be funding a program that is explicitly racial in manner. It's very interesting. The State Foreign Operations and Related Programs Appropriation Act's $200 million for the Gender Equity and Equality Action Fund. Again, why the fuck are taxpayers funding such a thing? It shouldn't be happening. The Interior, Environment, and Related Agencies Appropriations Act's $108 million for environmental justice activities. What that means, they refuse to actually define. Environmental justice basically means we planted more trees in the ghetto. That's basically all I can describe it as. It seems to be the basic premise anyway. There's other stuff there. The Commerce, Justice, Science, and Related Agencies Appropriations Act, claiming that white supremacists and violent anti-government domestic extremists are infiltrating security and law enforcement. Yeah, but notably, commies are also trying to infiltrate them, but that's not a problem. The Department of Homeland Security Appropriations Act, directing Immigrations and Customs Enforcement to detain transgender illegal aliens at facilities only with staff who have received LGBTI, and I don't know what the I stands for, the acronym keeps shifting, sensitivity and awareness training, and medical personnel with experience delivering hormone therapies. The Energy and Water Development and Related Agencies Appropriations Act, requesting that the Department of Energy consider social equity and environmental and energy justice in state and community energy programs. Well, it's just a request, so that probably stands the litmus test of constitutionality, but is it necessary? No. Is it proper? No. Is it helping anybody? No, not really. So why the fuck are we spending millions of dollars doing these things? It's a pile of horse shit is what it is. Iggy Rules 420, thanks a lot. He will love this. His small one will love it. Stephen 13, should the U.S. annex the Western Canadian territories to create a land bridge to Alaska? No, we should annex all of Canada, actually. The United States should subjugate Canada, turn the provinces into states, subjugate them to the Constitution, rip them out of the power of the British Empire. Aaron Nelson, note, the Budweiser apology video used a real mare, not a gelding or stud horse. Thought that was even funnier. So its dick was wagging around, dripping cum everywhere. I don't know the difference between those. I know nothing about the equestrian. Crossover maniac. Leftists trying to ban homeschooling out themselves as big government shills. Well, of course they are. But they don't consider it shilling. They consider it proper. They want everyone to get a good education, by which they mean re-education. Maxwell JW, good morning, Sticks. Have you ever watched the YouTuber Wendigoon? His channel is a cornucopia of all things religious, weird, wonderful, and strange. Never heard of them, but I'll Wendigoon. Yeah, I'll look it up. Thank you. I'll check that out later. I hope it's psychedelic, man. It's just mushrooms on my eyes, man. Wolf Better, can you homeschool in Europe? I don't think we can. Yeah, except in Germany. Germany has banned that. In the Netherlands, it is legal. The Merv, great streams, man. Keep up the great work. Thank you. And Jetski. Elon, SpaceX is launching a Starship from Boca Chica, Texas on 4/20 at 9:30 a.m. Central. Yes, I know. Tomorrow they will be launching another rocket. The other day they scrubbed it. They went through all of the tests and stuff, but there was what was it? There was a pressure problem, I think, on the coolant or something like that. So they had to scrap it. Didn't launch. You get the Incubus. The idea of America conquering Canada and subjecting them to a constitution our own government barely acknowledges amuses me, not going to lie. Yeah, as long as we return to true libertarianism, it's perfectly acceptable for our Canadian brothers who speak the same language to be subjugated to a much better system. Sigilstone, if you want some newer music with style from yesteryear, try Glory Hammer, some good power metal for the eternal glory of Dundee. And Stephen 13, Yukon will go to Alaska and British Columbia will become the 51st state. British Columbia will be renamed to New Columbia. The rest of Canada will be a puppet. No, just to fucking take over the whole thing. That way, you'd be the I think the largest country at that point. Wouldn't that be slightly larger than Russia? I think so. Between the United States and Canada, I think they'd be larger. I could be wrong, though. Sebastian Monroe, do you like battle reenactments? I learned there's Battle of Grol reenactment events in Groenlo, Netherlands. No, I've never been to a reenactment, but they do seem cool. Casperus, Wyoming sent $1.99. No comment. Thank you. Next news story. TikTok is too popular to ban, claims The Atlantic. I disagree while agreeing that a ban is a bad idea on TikTok. I mean, especially through the fucking Restrict Act that they're trying to push, because it has nothing to do with TikTok. It really has to do with giving the U.S. government unfettered access to every website, to block users, to block websites, to nitpick and look through everything, to spy on people. It's pig in a pokery. It's the Digital Patriot Act and then some. It's worse than the Patriot Act, if you can believe that. And as a millennial, and some of you are as well, that really stings. Anyway, I agree that TikTok should not be banned, and I'll try to make clear why in a moment. It's not because it's too popular. This is The Atlantic. They're simping for TikTok because they like the fact that it spreads Marxist propaganda, critical race theory, a bunch of bullshit acronym genders and stuff like that. It's meant to weaken the West, and it is a problem. Although it's one that, again, based on the digital situation as it is today being totally different from at the dawn of the 2000s, I really genuinely don't think that TikTok is going to ever supplant the standard vlogging that's going on YouTube. They're latecomers to the party. The problem is when YouTube arrived on the set, where was the market share? What did you have? You had MetaCafe and you had Dailymotion, which were dysfunctional and still are. YouTube arrived, it became more functional, and they became almost monopolistic. They have much more money, much more users, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. TikTok is the latecomer. If anything, they're more likely to disappear before Rumble would. That is my genuine opinion. Here's why you don't want to try to ban TikTok. It's a tale of two dystopian pathways that a nation can take. Number one, you fail. Your ban fails. You ban TikTok effectively, but people just bypass it. What have you just done? You've made TikTok cool. Instead of it being cringe land, instead of it being a place where a bunch of morons dance around and twerk and do random shit, and I don't know, they don't smoke Tide Pods anymore. I wonder what they're up to these days. Probably chugging energy drinks until their heart stops or something. Who knows what the teens will do this generation. You've made it cool, though. So instead of it being kind of cringy, it's tweens and perverts attendant to that, probably, unfortunately. Other people get aboard. Hell, if they were to try to ban TikTok in the United States, I'd be tempted to get aboard. I would get a clean phone for it, and it would be definitely stored away when not in use so that it can't spy on me, because it's Chi-Com bullshit. But I'd say, well, this is going to cause a shit ton of people to get aboard the platform, which right now is still much smaller than other big platforms. Maybe I should get there for the sake of my career, number one, and to convince people of my political choices, number two. So you've made it cool instead of cringe. That would be a bad idea. Number two, you succeed. You snuff out TikTok. The platform effectively withers and dies because Western users can no longer use it. And so TikTok, the US auxiliary of the original Chinese company, doesn't have any users. They don't know how to use it. What have you just done? You've shown that the US government is capable of strangulating what is effectively at least a sub-US based company at a whim simply because of the political views being expressed on it. Do you not think that that power will be misused in any way, shape, or form by leftoids towards Twitter, towards YouTube? Well, probably not YouTube. It's too big to fail at this point. Towards anyone else that steps out of line? Like they won't extend the Restrict Act further? It doesn't even have to do with just foreign firms in the first place. If it were just foreign-based firms, so actually explicitly foreign, you could make at least a constitutional, if not pragmatic, argument for such a step. The Restrict Act in its current language, though, doesn't do that. TikTok is not entirely US-based. It's a US branch that happens to exist from a Chinese company. God, if every branch of every foreign company can be directly administered and US firms under the same language, at least indirectly so, is that not a problem? You really trust the US government to tell you which tech sites you're supposed to use? The average age of a person in the Senate is in the late 60s. These people don't know shit from Shinola about these things. Chuck Schumer thinks Facebook is still cool. Christ all fucking mighty. Yeah, no thank you. I think that I would keep Congress's greedy hands off of the internet entirely. If you want to combat TikTok, make a competitor. Bring back Vine. Fund Elon Musk and tell him, look, bring back Vine. We think it'll be a good idea. You know, do something on YouTube instead of having a weird, warped hybrid system that simply rewards people for making cringe-ass shorts. Have some separate service or something like that. I don't trust the U.S. government to keep the kids safe from Chi-Com propaganda. Do they spread the Chi-Com propaganda themselves? They get paid by the Chinese. This is not about TikTok. Banning it's a bad idea under the Restrict Act because of the loose language and the fact that if you fail and all the tweens start going around your block by using VPNs and shit, it's all over. The Chi-Coms become cool. Communist propaganda will become accepted as fact because of the rebellious nature of youth. Stephen 13, not only an annexation of Canada, but America will become a nationalist country. It'll be socially right-wing and economically left-wing, a hardcore U.S. Why would I want it to be economically left-wing? A terrible idea. Verona 7881, hey Sticks, what is your opinion about AI? I've given it before. I think it can be very useful. It's very interesting, but it can also be misused. And unfortunately, when people can misuse something technologically, they tend to do so. Just look at Alfred Nobel if you want an example of human beings misusing a fundamentally good idea that was meant to save lives, and then they ended up killing a lot more people in the end. Rebels have sex appeal. No ban necessary, just demonize it for kids. Yeah, but the problem is you're not going to be able to do that by getting 50-plus people complaining about it in Congress. You're going to have honest-to-goodness grassroots content creators like myself with talent argue against the use of the platform on a pragmatic and basic basis. But we're being suppressed by the platforms we would have to utilize in order to say that. Well, that becomes a problem. They've suppressed the people that could have saved their own propaganda platforms for years now. Durin Albane, have you looked back at the Glenn Beck chalk boards and compared them to what we know today? Yeah, he had some good points, but the problem is when you say the same thing for 4 years in a row every single night, it gets a little bit old. Fubar 2020, if we annex Canada, might as well annex Mexico. Well, that would shrink the southern border. I think that would be a more hard sell. Economically, especially. Sigilstone, if the Restrict Act is passed, I imagine the CIA will gather in a conga line and march the bill to Biden and synchronize slinking while the Pink Panther theme plays in the background. Oh, they'll get in line. They'll be running a train, and Pete Buttigieg will be somewhere in there too. They would love it. Oh, we're allowed to censor literally everything that we want and work around the Constitution. We don't even have to notify Congress. We've got like a 3-day wait period before we even have to notify the president when we abuse somebody or a site. Hey, wonderful. We can effectively shut down anybody that we want legally, and there will be no form of oversight whatsoever. And the Restrict Act is fucking terrible. If you read through some of the premises, and they're trying to con people by saying, well, the Chinese are spreading propaganda that the Restrict Act is a bad idea. No. I see through Chinese propaganda and call it out regularly, and I am no goddamn friend of leftoidism, communism, China, or anything tangentially related to it. This has nothing to do with Chinese propaganda. If your bill was 1 page long and said, TikTok will be banned on US devices, well, it would still be a bad strategic idea. At least you're limiting yourself. That is not what the Restrict Act does. Marendel has a good idea. Could kill TikTok by convincing boomers to use it. The youth will drop it like a hot potato and then just wait for the boomer stage out. Yeah, boomers, do something useful. You know, you don't care if you're spied on because you're in your 60s and shit. Get a TikTok account and start posting the cringiest ass bullshit on there possible. Pretend to be kids, like you'll have your hair to the side and, you skateboard and shit like that. Be as cringy as fucking possible and overrun TikTok with boomerism. Make it the next Facebook. Oh boy, wouldn't that be funny? You still have time. You can finally save the United States like you always wanted to before you sold out to commies. Stephen 13. Even though I disagree with some of your opinions, I still agree with many and appreciate your work. I've been watching since 2016 after my mom recommended you to me. Oh, thank you. You have a cool mom. As do I, by the way. She might be watching now. She sometimes watches the live streams. Iga the Incubus. I disagree that annexing Mexico could be a hard sell. Consider the fact that our own southern border already doesn't exist. Yeah, you got a point, I suppose. And then the final news story, of course, Tax Armageddon Day is coming. Not in the immediate tense, but in 2025. Here's the problem. All of those tax reforms that Donald Trump imposed in his term are set to expire in 2025. And that means you will be paying much, much more in taxes. Believe it or not, because apparently a majority of the U.S. public doesn't actually know this. The average American did pay less taxes as of Trump's reforms. They did broadly affect mainly the working and middle class. It was not a tax break that was aimed at the top like it was claimed. That was a propaganda campaign. It has been acknowledged by numerous people in economics and tax law. Yeah, Donald Trump's tax reform did primarily help disproportionately the working and middle class, people, in the lower rungs of society. That is true. And that expires in a couple of years. That's really a problem because right now the economy is already on the brink. Now, there's a simple solution. You reelect Donald Trump and you reelect enough MAGA in the House and Senate to make sure that the tax reform is extended and elaborated on. Like, look at the self-employment tax, which, by the way, that break, I think, has already ended, unfortunately, disproportionately impacting people like me. It was funny because they ticked up the amount that you had to make before the additional income wasn't subject to the, 15 point something percent additional tax. So I get taxed about 15% on all of my income above and beyond the average individual. Now, unfortunately, what happened is that they raised the amount, the threshold for that, to just above what I made last year. So I had to pay that penalty for every penny. I was looking forward to being just past it and saying, well, I got like $5,000 above that threshold. That's pretty nice. It's taxed a little bit less. I have a little bit, I have an extra grand basically at the end of the year. I didn't get that. They decided to adjust it upwards, screwing me literally within a few $1,000s of my actual income with the self-employment tax. Taxes are excessive in the United States. We should massively reduce them. As a stopgap measure, though, I'm willing to simply get Trump back in there to extend the lower tax rates that he already passed and elaborate on them, even if it is half-assed. A little bit more relief, a little more child tax credit, which he has talked about and is a good idea. I think we should reward people for having a kid or more kids. A reduction in, reduce the limitless SALT write-off that only applies to the rich generally. Apply that only to businesses that are rich on paper, et cetera, et cetera. I would vote for Trump just to do that. It would probably save our fucking economy. We're going to go all over a fucking cliff. Yeah, being self-employed is no joke. You pay 15% surcharge on every penny that you make until you make, what is it, 146,000, I think is the threshold. Now watch, I'll make almost a little bit more than that next year, but then they'll raise the cap again or something like that. Knowing my luck, this has happened multiple times. Rebels have sex appeal. 10 cent won't sell. Demonetize TikTok, not demonize. Yeah, you can demonetize TikTok, I guess. Dan Malone 53, the Corbett Report. Watch this if you have time. Guide to 5th Generation Warfare. We are in a meme war, especially against the legacy media at the moment. How many people are watching on Rumble? It's almost 2,000 people on Rumble. So again, more than 4,000 people watching live at the moment and crawling upwards. Yeah, if I had my level of income and I didn't have to pay the self-employment surcharge, I'd be buying a house right now. The problem is you get continuously held back. It's like, why would you want to hold somebody back who's taking the initiative? Like they're taking less and adding more to society technically, simply by engaging in that kind of lifestyle. Why would you want to deliver, unless you are completely economically backwards or malevolent, you wouldn't want to hold back entrepreneurs that work for themselves. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And that affects Sole proprietors, you've got a small business, you're paying that. You're an entrepreneur, you're self-employed, like in the general sense, like me, you're doing a lot of stuff that is effectively freelance, you get hammered. 15% tax rate. What is the marginal tax rate that you have to get to, the marginal income rather, that you have to get to before you even hit 15%? Let me look that up really quickly. U.S. tax brackets. We're going to fact check this live. How much do you have to make under normal circumstances before you would even pay 15% on the continuing income? Let's see. Now, that's not telling me anything. I fucking hate some of these sites. A lot of them are terribly laid out. It makes sense. Yeah, you get to 50. Yeah, you have to make more than 41K. And that's at 12%. It jumps to 22 between 41,000 and 89,000 for the bracket itself. So yeah, you need to make at least reasonably middle class, or I think with Biden inflation, lower middle class salary before you're normally subjected to that at all. And you pay a 10% tax rate on the early income, and then 12% till that point. So it's much lower. So I think really, if you wanted to pay the margin, wouldn't that be about 50K or 55K that you'd have to make for that to be your effective tax rate? Well, I pay it on the first dollar that I make. I owe 15 cents on that first dollar, even if it's the only one I make all year. That's the way that it works. It makes absolutely no goddamn sense whatsoever. Because, I mean, the problem is my money comes from books. Those are subject to self-employment. Donations, those are subject. What I'm doing right now, getting Superchats, income from Rumble, that's self-employment. And it comes in just under that margin where I would finally escape and break through, and a little bit of that money would be taxed lower simply because the self-employment tax doesn't apply. No, thank you, Joe Biden. Really cool. And then you've got state taxes to deal with, of course. I'm glad to know, though, that I bought some bullets for Ukrainians. I'm glad to know that I bought a couple of the rockets that were fired at Yemeni children. I'm glad to know that I paid for some money to be sent to, rogue third world regimes that bully all of their neighbors all the time. Wink, wink, which one am I talking about? I'm glad for that. I'm glad that the U.S. government didn't take any of the money it stole from me to pay for homeless veterans upkeep, or for the mentally ill, or for anything domestic, or to staff the border, and instead is sending hemorrhaging money overseas. How wonderful. Opinionated junkie. Difference between China and U.S. having data. TikTok. Yeah, exactly. I mean, Facebook does the same fucking thing. I mean, to be honest, I'm being glib. It is true that it is worse for the Chinese Communist Party to have your info directly than to have a U.S. firm having it. There are less restraints on what they can do with that info. That's true. They will use it for espionage, political hit pieces. If a person is on TikTok, right? And they post cringe shit. The Chinese have all their info. They spy on them. They catch them in an affair or something. And then that person runs for governor, and they're going to go on a hard on China platform. They're in a state with a lot of trade like Florida or California. Do you think the Chi-Coms might act? Of course, it's in their self-interest to act. Of course, your own government is more restrained from doing so. Big problem is a lot of U.S. firms bundle that material and sell it to China anyway. We've been having a conversation about this with regards to Facebook for a decade now. TikTok is a big problem. That being said, attempting to ban it will probably backfire. If you're successful, you've destroyed the internet with the Restrict Act. If you're unsuccessful, you've made TikTok cool. Now the teenagers and tweens will listen to more propaganda, and they'll think that what they're hearing is even more accurate than they already do because they're too young and inexperienced to understand that nuance. It's just the way that it works. Sort of like when people used to try to do activism on Facebook for the millennial generation. Didn't work so well, did it? Anyway, I think that I'm going to go offline. I thank all of you for tuning in, but I have some things to do. Going to put the baby to the nap in a little bit, and should probably eat something. I wolfed down 4 goddamn bowls of that masala that I made the other day. Actually, the second day I put lentils in it and a little more bouillon because it's that sort of watered down the flavor. And it was goddamn delicious, nice and spicy. I chopped up 2 full onions in that shit too. Anyway, yeah, I'll be live tomorrow. I'll get more news for you. Hopefully I'll be a little bit more high energy tomorrow. I'm reasonably caffeinated right now, but not fully. And it's also a really nice day. So I kind of just want to open up the door and sit outside for a little while this afternoon. I want to take a break. I'm not allowed to do so. All day long I work. If it's not baby related or video related, it's book related usually. Also cooking and cleaning. I enjoy both, but Jesus Christ. It's like I work a 70-hour week almost. Charles Lopez, did you hear about the New York City Fed shutting down a Chinese police station and arresting 2 Chinese nationals? Also, don't ask about the elves. Yeah, I've heard of the Chinese doing that. They set up what are effectively fake policing firms, and then they abuse and harass people. Why this is tolerated in the United States and they can't fucking figure out where they are and just, send them back to Beijing, I don't know. Could it be that they want them to harass people? Yeah, I think that we've probably got it in a nutshell. That's about all. Peace out.